Welcome and thank you so much for stopping by. Today, we're going to be discussing time management and productivity challenges that different generations face, as well as what freelancers might face and what startup companies might face when it comes to time management and productivity. And what should companies be aware of and taking into consideration if they're going to hire, say, a Gen Z or a Gen Y, or they want to contract out freelancers or startups, what should they take into consideration? And today I have with me a very special guest to have this conversation with. Ceylan, can you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Ceylan Ersoy. I am originally Turkish, but now I'm based in New York. I am a person who juggles a lot of things at the same time. Right now, I have one full-time job and two part-time jobs. I work with several startups at the same time. And I graduated from UC Berkeley in 2020 and have been working ever since.
Very good. Thank you. So now let's actually start with a few definitions, for lack of a better word, as far as how old these different generations are. And I'll give you an example. I have one client who's in his mid 50s, and during one session, he was griping, "Oh, these darn millennials, they won't do this or they won't do that." And he was talking about a 25-year-old who was not a millennial. So can you give us a rough age of how old is Gen Z, and if you know how old Gen Y is?
Wow, that is a great question. I should get my facts right. And because I don't know specifically from
Mhm.
which year the cutoff is, I want
Okay.
to say I think millennials end at born in 97, and after 97 Gen Z starts, which is how I'm a Gen Z because I was born in 98. So anyone that's younger than that can't be a millennial. But I think these definitions don't shouldn't really have a cutoff, because I'm coming across so many people that are associating themselves more as millennials than Gen Z, but they're technically born as a Gen Z. I think it's more about like what people define themselves as. It's generally like applicable though, these generation cutoffs, because I do associate myself more as a Gen Z than a millennial, but I think it would differ from person to person.
Yes, and I'm so glad you bring this up, because I think that when we try to work off these very specific definitions, we can be typecast ourselves or we can typecast others. And really, there are different generations who have a lot of these same familiar and similar characteristics. So if anybody recognizes themselves in anything that we discuss, no matter how old they are, then they can forget about which generational tag they want to try to put on it. We can talk about time management and productivity no matter what the age is. So in general, what have you found are some common challenges with folks who might be your age compared to somebody else? What should we be aware of?
So one thing that's really interesting with my generation and the overall Gen Z is their approach to work life is severely different than older generations, which is why I think as I was venturing into my career, I had a lot of disagreements with my parents. Both my parents worked in corporate structures, a 9 to 5 full time, their entire lives. They barely changed their job. They barely hopped from a company to company. And their main priority was always stability and being able to put food in the table. They were essentially approaching jobs as what it was returning. Was it returning flexibility in terms of like vacation days? Was it returning a good salary? And of course, like location and secondary things. What we're seeing a lot with Gen Z and my generation is that for them, work can't be just in terms of its return. Work is a big majority of our life is spent working. So it needs to be something that brings them inspiration. It needs to be something that drives them. So they really want to see themselves working for a wider purpose. This could be something that they're really passionate about. It could be something that they're developing themselves. But the second that they're not really finding that this job is steering towards their passion or their calling, they will hop jobs. So that's why we're seeing a lot of limited like retention rates and a lot of people changing their jobs very frequently. So
Mhm.
that's the biggest challenge. A lot of people find their calling very late in life, but Gen Z is always frustrated as they're venturing into their career for the first time to find their passion early on so that they can find a job that really delivers to it. And what I'm seeing with a lot of people around me is they're finding themselves in jobs, they're finding dissatisfaction very quickly, and they're trying to find another job, and the same goes for that second job. So the big challenge here is like finding something that really calls to them, and then really finding a job and getting a job that's associated with it. And this also is a challenge for employers, because in order to help like these employees like stay in the company, they really need to deliver to their needs, create like opportunities that where they can grow, really understand what they're looking for in this job, and like find ways that they're can bring their strong suits to the table with this. So for example, someone's calling may not be a sales position, but their calling might be interacting a lot with people. So let's say this Gen Z employee is coming to this company into the sales role. The manager should be able to understand that this employee's strong suit and their passion is to be interacting with people. So they may position themselves to be more client facing. So I think like the key there is like individually finding your passion and finding what you really want to focus on. This doesn't have to be an industry, this doesn't have to be a position specific to this, but really finding that and then looking for jobs in line with that. And on the employer's perspective, I think it's open communication and really talking to your employees to understand their needs. There's not like one straight answer, and there's not going to be one right way to approach your employees.
Right, exactly. Now, let's say that you are working for somebody, a manager, a leader who doesn't exactly understand this, and they're not doing it on purpose. It's just they are not aware that they should be taking all this into consideration. So, do you have any advice for Gen Zers or a person of any age who feels this way? What do you think would be a good approach to approach your employer, your supervisor, to bring up this discussion so they can understand your needs a little better, so that you can better help the company?
That's a great question. And I'm seeing a lot of my peers being very scared to approach their higher ups in terms of these conversations. But what we really need to understand is in this day and age, we all need to be very proactive when it comes to our needs. And Gen Zers are actually really good at doing this. They are very good at defying norms. And with a lot of companies, we have set structures. We have like, let's say, annual review cycles. But I'm seeing a lot of my Gen Z peers really going above and beyond that and approaching their managers routinely rather than just waiting for that annual review cycle to really discuss what they want to see different. I myself like did try to do that when I first started with my job. I was also quite intimidated to bring these conversations up, but I really wanted to position my manager not just like a manager, but as a mentor as well. And I think he also adopted that at the time, and I really appreciated him for it. And I would not wait for him to come to me with like feedback, etc. I would try to make it a habit, even like take note of it, to every 2 months go up to him and say, can we organize a review cycle and go over like our recent projects, what went wrong, what went right, how can we develop this? And then a good example of this is I really wanted to transition into the creative side of things. And I kept bringing it up in every single meeting, and eventually it did end up happening. But I'm now seeing that if I weren't proactive with this, and if I didn't bring this up, no one's just going to come to me and in a silver plate offer me this new transition into this new position that offers more creative responsibilities. We really need to find ways to, first of all, understand what we want, and then find ways to really bring this in front of other people's attention so that really being proactive with it is the solution.
Exactly. And what you're describing, I think, should not apply only to Gen Z, but to everybody. And this is part of the reason why there are time management challenges and productivity hiccups in companies, company-wide and among all generations, because there's this communication gap between what should be delivered, what is being delivered, how can we improve upon it? And when everybody is in such a rush to hurry up and finish one thing so they can go on to the next thing, and they don't make time for that debrief, or in project management, it's called a post-mortem, to look at what went right, what went wrong, where can we improve? I mean, we just don't make as much progress. So it's great that you're pointing out that if you are not currently getting this from your supervisor, from your employer, then every couple of months, it's not every day, it's not every week, just every couple of months, ask to have this conversation. So excellent, excellent advice.